So we would expect this to be effective against all invading viral infections because it's optimizing the immune system. We would expect this to be effective against all bacterial infections because it's optimizing the immune system. But COVID is an interesting example, and it's where the data is, so we'll stick with it. Now, the figures here, the odds ratio is 0.403, and that means it's about a 60% protective effect, so 60% less likely to actually get the infection for people that have got good levels of vitamin D as opposed to low levels of vitamin D. So quite impressive, really. And in the randomised controlled trials performed on healthcare workers, the overall reduction in risk in the population supplemented with vitamin D was approximately 80%. So about an 80% protection in healthcare workers. And these ones are particularly relevant because these were well-conducted clinical trials. So this is pretty convincing data. So why wouldn't you want to reduce your chances of getting a viral or bacterial infection by 80%? Why wouldn't you? It's pretty obvious, really. Moving on, against the incidence of COVID-19 in analytical studies. So they were randomized control studies. In analytical studies, its odds ratio 0.592. So that's a bit more than a 40% protective effect. So still pretty good. But the randomized controlled trial data was, of course, the one most likely to be accurate. Now, against the incidence of COVID-19 in intensive care admissions, look at that. Odds ratio is 0.317. That's getting on for a 70% protective effect. So we've got these protective effects against getting COVID, the incidence of COVID. Now, these people might still be getting it, of course, but they're not testing because they're probably not getting symptomatic. They've probably got very minor infections and they weren't testing. That's the analytical studies, and that is the reduced incidence to intensive care, nearly 70%. So that's what this is about if you want to stay. Now, our meta-analysis, this is their conclusion, our meta-analysis suggests a definitive and significant association between the protective role of vitamin D in COVID-19 incidence and ICU admissions. So this is really quite a convincing study from Italy. Now, let's look at some of the details. This is the title of the study here. Preventative vitamin D supplementation and the risk for COVID-19 infection, a systematic review and meta-analysis. It's published in the peer-reviewed journal Nutrients. That's the paper there. Available in PDF. Do download it for yourself. All freely available, which of course is very generous of the journal. Published in February, 28th February 2024. Now, the authors say this: vitamin D, crucial roles. Bone homeostasis, well, we know about that, strong bones, because deficiency causes rickets. Muscle function, oncogenesis. This is the formation of cancers. Now, good levels of vitamin D are protective, we believe, from our conversations with Professor Angus Dalgleish, probably against a whole range of cancers, just by optimizing vitamin D levels. And this makes sense because by optimizing vitamin D levels, you're optimizing the immune system. And if you optimize the immune system, you optimize immune surveillance, and that can spot cancers at an early stage and hopefully eradicate the vast majority of them, or certainly an awful lot of them. So oncogenesis, immune response and metabolism.